This is Glambition Radio, episode number 213, with Dafina Smith, founder and CEO of Covet Mane. Welcome to Glambition Radio. I am your host, Allie Brown. I'm an entrepreneur, mentor, investor, and mom of twins. I love thinking big, doing different, and exploring ideas that disrupt the status quo, especially when it comes to women, because we are rewriting the rules for leadership, business success, making money, and changing the world. And we're doing it with style. Let's go. Quick shout out to 2 reviews my team pulled for me from iTunes. The first is from Valentina. She says, just what I needed during this pandemic to motivate me. Discovered Allie's podcast through Tanya Dalton. Thank you, Tanya. I learned so much from all these women featured, currently binge hearing these episodes and feeling hope during these difficult times. And the next one is Shiro's Journey, says great energy and inspirational. Allie embodies an intelligence, enthusiasm, and curiosity that are key to successful podcasting. It shows that this started for her as a passion project and inspires my own journey as I embark on a sabbatical. Good luck with that. And if you had a chance to hear the quick show we posted last week about the Glambition giveaway, I want to send you one of these beautiful journals that is a big thank you for leaving us a review. Now go back and listen to that last episode for all the details, and then go to glambitiongiveaway.com. And this isn't just like a raffle or a drawing. If you left a review and you're one of the first 50 to claim this journal, we will send you one. So all the details are on that page. Okay. We really appreciate it. Now, this show could not be more timely. I have to tell you, with recent events, I've really taken probably like the past week to just get my head around what's going on, get my head around what our role can be as a company, what my personal role can be going forward as a leader. And I understand that's just the start of the awareness and convictions that we need to have around what's simmering here with the Black Lives Matter movement. I mean, just the response over the world has been amazing. I've been having some private conversations with many of my own clients and colleagues, and I have to tell you, they've been magical, eye-opening. They were more than open to take my calls and questions. There were some tears, there was sadness, but there's also this bit of an undercurrent of excitement and possibility at what this dialogue can open up for all of us. And I'm thrilled that by serendipitous timing, we were scheduled to have our guest this week, Dafina Smith. And man, just couldn't be better. She's founder of Covet Mane, and she's an amazing entrepreneur. She's a member of my trust network. And as a Black business leader, she's been graciously willing to go there on this show. And I checked in with her. I'm like, do you want to go there? I'd like to. She's like, absolutely. Let's talk about it. So we do it toward the end of the interview, because it gets a little heavier. But you're also going to really enjoy her story. You're going to really enjoy the way she just kind of took on her career and her life, what she's created for herself, and now how more of her legacy work is going to play out with what's happening today. So get ready for a powerful conversation, and just was so honored to have her on the show, especially at this time. Dafina Smith. Dafina, I'd like to know where you are right now.
I am in Westport, Connecticut, and I just moved on Monday. I don't even know what day of the week it is. It's been that type of month.
How is it moving during COVID?
Oh, it's chaotic. It's chaotic because it's always chaotic to move. You don't know what's open. You're moving to a new town. You don't know what's open there. You're wearing masks, protective gear. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, your home is your sanctuary right now. So it feels really good for me to be kind of more mindful setting up my home now of how we actually are living in our homes so much more.
Yeah.
So it's nice at the same time.
Yeah. So I love situations like this because I've gotten to know you pretty well over the last few months, but then I get your full bio and I'm like, you have all these like past lives, like celebrity past lives. I mean, you worked with Outkast. I'm like, oh my God. And I mean, you're places you've worked have been featured on the Braxtons, Real Housewives of Atlanta. I'm almost like, is this the right bio? I had to look back and I'm like, this is Dafina. Oh my gosh.
Okay. There's this character. I don't know if anyone watches Schitt's Creek. And there's this character, Alexis, who had this like life where she's like running off places. You know, sometimes I feel like that. Like it just sounds so strange because I live like a very suburban twin mom life who's had this very, just moved to New York and just had a couple of friends. And within our crew, we just had a lot of people ended up being in the entertainment industry at a time where I just think we got at the peak of just great hip hop and artistry. And I just got enmeshed in that. And it was just a really amazing journey. I'm so thankful for those memories, but sometimes it's disjointed with my current life sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did that all happen? I know you got an impressive education and then came into the working world. So how did this start?
Yeah. So it started, I went to Georgetown University and I graduated 20 years ago. We just had our Covet canceled 20-year reunion. And I moved to New York City I was in the Bloomingdale's buyer training program. And all of my friends, a lot of people at Georgetown, they graduate, go to New York City. And so I was in the men's buying division. And it was at the time where a lot of hip hop artists were starting clothing lines. Somehow they were like, great, Black girl, go buy the hip hop artist.
You.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
You've got the style. You've got the look. You must know what's cool.
Yeah. So go. And it was Sean. We bought like Sean John Fat Farm. We also bought like Diesel. I remember Fred Perry was like an re-emerging brand. It was great. I learned so much. I loved it. But, so professionally, that's like the space that you were in. And then a lot of my friends one was going to film school and she ended up her name is Melina Matsuka. She's a well-known director, artist, activist. And then I had another friend who was signed as my friend African Miranda, who is a singer and an actress and a model. And she was signed to, I think, Sony at the time. So, we would like go, I almost felt like we were like Gem. We would like go to work during the day. And then at night, we lived this very, very glamorous nightlife thing. And then it just kind of evolved into me working with Outkast was an outgrowth of just some of my friends' connections. And it all kind of was very serendipitous and so much fun.
And so when you were doing that, then you transitioned to real estate. I almost missed that sentence.
This is one thing I think I just like to tell women in their 20s is that I think like young women who just have very like solid, steady 20s, it makes for, I don't know. It's just like, I'm so thankful that it was like, I was a little all over the place and I just kind of leaned into it. Right. So I love real estate and I think I was watching a movie. This is not like very deep in terms of inspiration. I was watching some movie, I think it was Sidewalks of New York, and the two characters were a real estate agent. And I was like, that seems fun. I want to do that. And, I love seeing New York apartments. I love architecture. And I'm just, a natural people person. I really think that's what it is. It's just, I'm so curious about people. And I went and got my real estate license and then stumbled into one day, John Mayer walked in, his assistant walked in, and I was very young and he was one of my like big deals that I closed when I was very young. And it just kept going. It was just a great, fun time.
So you just followed things. Like if an opportunity was there, you just walked into it.
Yeah. I just kind of was very open and kind of followed what I loved. And then when I didn't love it anymore, I was like, okay, what's next?
Mm-hmm. I think that's what your 20s should be, right?
Yes.
Wrong jobs, wrong men.
Yes. Yes.
Wrong career. Yeah. Like there was one point that I remember I was teaching step. I was working at a full-time job at a publishing company. I joined it like a network marketing thing. I was selling vitamins from my bicycle. Like I was just, but when I look back, it was so much fun. And I remember just having this sense of adventure and wanting to try things on and being like, well, got nothing to lose. Your 20s are for that. And so it's funny because I was always so envious of those girls who were like, I'm going to be a doctor and I know exactly what I'm doing. And here's my plan. And I was like, wow, I could be a backup dancer for Madonna. I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what? I find that now that I'm, in my 40s, I find that a lot of my friends who did know exactly what they want to do and pursue it, they're kind of struggling now.
You're right. Yeah, they peak too early.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. This is a nice way of saying it. Yeah.
Well, or they get to that place, you're right, and that adventure comes back, that craving for adventure.
Yeah. And it's like they've been so, kind of like a silo mentality. And then it's really hard for them to kind of figure out what they want to do for that next season. I'm like, I have plenty of ideas. If I have a new season that I get thrust into, I feel like I saw so many curiosities when I was younger that I'm, excited to maybe go revisit later.
So let's talk about the hair, how you got into hair, how you decided to start a new type of business in the hair extension industry. This is where I really want to dig in.
Okay. So I guess it's been 12 years at the time so let's start back. My family still has to this day, a business. It started as a beauty supply in Minneapolis called Sunny's Hair and Wigs. And when I grew up behind the beauty counter selling hair extensions. Started in the 90s. It was kind of like the everything store. It was just, a mom and pop beauty supply. But, with me being a buyer and then in the buying program, I really would, come home on the holidays or spend time on long weekends and be like, okay, we need to do an open to buy. We need to have a forecasting plan. We need to have an inventory system. So I would, kind of migrate some of the knowledge that I had there. But the more I understood about the fashion industry, I was looking at their business to say, beauty is actually a great, anyone who knows beauty, they have great margins, whereas fashion does not. And so I slowly got involved about 12 years ago in the family business when I was doing real estate and I wanted to start a website. So I approached my parents and I was like, why don't I start like the online division of your store? At the time, they had 2 stores, one in Minneapolis and one in Scottsdale.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really?
Yeah, they're Snowbird. They started off as Snowbirds and now they've been in Arizona. Now it's in Mesa.
Wow.
They've been there for like 15 years, I want to say. 15 or 16.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And so I spent a lot of time in Scottsdale. I love it there. So yeah, I started just as the online, just like I was like, it'd be cool if we, made some sales. And this is 12 years ago, e-commerce was just kind of, I think it was like a Yahoo store. So that's how it started. And then from there, I was doing real estate. This is before the 2008 recession. And at one point I looked up my life and I was like, I'm actually making way more running a website than selling real estate in LA during a recession. Mm-hmm. And so, beauty is a recession-proof business. And with that, ever since that, I kind of committed to being a part of the family business. And the entree point to that was doing the online division part of it and kind of bringing, more of the younger side of.
Well, okay. I want to ask you about something you just said, because you said beauty is a recession-proof business. I would think that could be for many women the first thing they cut, but is that absolutely not true?
It's not true, and I've lived to see it now through a pandemic to see it as well, and I think a lot of us with what we've gone through, when you couldn't get your hair done, you need to look in the mirror and see how you want to feel. There's like that connectivity to it. During a recession, a woman might cut back, but they're not going to cut it out. And I have found as well during a recession with beauty, people tend to go to stuff that they trust. Trust is really important. And you'd rather maybe spend a little bit more on something that is really going to work and last, and you'll use every little last bit of it than, gamble on something cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So the quality rises to the top during those times.
Yes. Yeah.
So they'll spend more on the better products and better services because it'll last them longer.
Yeah. It will last them longer. Like, even if you're getting your hair colored, it's just better to get it done right once and not have to try to, maybe go somewhere we're on a Groupon and then later on you're having to do a color correction. Like you can eke that out longer if you just get quality.
Groupon was never a good idea for the beauty industry. And the flip side too, because all the women I go to, they're like, oh, the Groupon people, everyone tries it once and then they're like, these people, I can't, the Groupon people are the biggest pains in the ass, typically. But okay, that's so interesting. So you decided to go into the beauty industry then based on what you were observing and experiencing with this online store. That was really the defining moment. You said this is going to be it?
Yeah, I saw, and and I knew where I could add impact. I knew from my experience at Bloomingdale's. I think Bloomingdale's, especially in its heyday in the 90s, experiential retail, events, just really fun events, really great merchandising. It wasn't too snotty or snobby, but it wasn't too young. And I love that. I love creating that experience. What we did is I expanded my family's business to Atlanta to open like a concept store there. And it was a great store. When you walked in, it was like this old Hollywood, and there was, leather settees for people to sit on. So it was just this very unique experience in Atlanta. And you've seen it on like Real Housewives and what else? We were on the Braxtons, we just kind of became a staple of Atlanta. It was a really great experience.
So then you decided to create your own line.
Yeah. So I had been with my family business for about 12 years. During that time I got married, I had twins, and I moved to New York City.
Okay. Where'd you meet Ryan?
Oh, so I met Ryan. I have a friend, Lacey, who I went to college with. I was living in Atlanta, and I was always like ripping and running. You could never find me in Atlanta, but I was, always on some flight. People were like, what's your favorite part about Atlanta? I was like, the airport.
Direct anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. He had just moved down to work for HLN and Court TV, and he didn't know anyone. So she was like, I want to introduce you to this guy as a friend. So for me, I was like, okay, that's great. He's gay. And I'll, have a new gay bestie. Because she said, I want to introduce you to him just as a friend thing. She was very clear. I mean, this is also a friend who had set me up in the past as well.
Okay.
So I figured.
And then you saw his picture, and he's like super gorgeous too. And you're like, must be gay, probably.
No, Allie, I didn't look at his picture. I didn't even bother. I just showed up. I was like, I'll meet in the coffee shop. I think I had like a lumberjack shirt on and like my hair in a bun. And I was
you were going to meet your new gay bestie.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, it's a Sunday coffee date at 3.
And he walked in, and I'm sorry, ladies, but you got to see a picture of her husband. And I'm not crushing on him, but if Brett's listening, I'm sorry, but your husband's like gorgeous. And so like I could imagine you sitting there in the lumberjack shirt.
So pissed.
And he was
so pissed.
And you're like, I'm going to kill her. She did not tell me.
Yeah. But then I was like, well, but there's also, I've been in cases where you show up and he's gorgeous, but he's gay. And so, but then about 15 minutes into it, I was like, he is not gay. Like, what is going on? So I think we had like a 4-hour coffee date, and I think by the middle of the date, I think I just started rubbing his upper thigh. I was like, let's just test this out. Let's just get this over with. I need to know.
There was some action going on in Starbucks that day. Oh my gosh. Now, was he in TV then already? You said, yeah, he was there for HLN.
Yeah, he had just he was an attorney before, and then he was just breaking into television. So that's how I mean, it's really, after that, it was a very boring story. We've been together since, and that's almost 10 years ago.
Wow. And you got the gorgeous kids. And all right, so we'll go back to that time though. So you met him, you guys got married, and then you decided to launch the hair line.
Yeah. So the hairline was, for Covet Mane, I had, been selling as part of this brand that's direct to consumer. So we sell to everyone. We sell to stylists and consumers. And I think that's kind of like that. I would almost say it's like the Best Buy model, right? Coming out of the 90s, where you're all things to all people. And I was frustrated. I felt like I just wanted to really elevate the experience. And I really just had this vision of like, I just want to create the Chanel of hair extensions. And I found that one of the problems is that I think that this product is a professional only product. Your extensions, it's such a high touch, it requires a lot of training. You really need to know what you're doing. And also, hair extensions are not taught in cosmetology school. And stylists who specialize in extensions tend to earn at least 7 times the amount of a standard cosmetologist. I wanted to connect with other professionals. I almost wanted I look at it almost like Botox, right? Like Botox, you can't just like go out and just buy it at CVS.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important who's putting it in. It's not just the product alone.
Mm-hmm.
You really need to get in the hands of good practitioners and have training and certification around that. And that's really where I wanted to, that's like the genesis for me of Covet Mane, was to be a professional only brand that sold just one type of hair extension, which is hand-tied hair extensions, and really get it in the hands of the right stylist. So we work by application only, and we really vet, we want to know, how long have you been doing it? We see your certifications, and then we started to partner with certification companies as well. And that, I think that's kind of where the magic came in, so that the consumer knows that because they have access to our brand, they're really in good hands. And I also know, just from running a business, it's just been night and day, the experience around it.
As I was doing research on your company and what you do, I learned a lot about hair extensions. And they seem to have come a long way. I had them when they first became popular. I tried a year or two of them, probably like 2006, with mixed results. I look back at some photos and I'm like, ooh, and other ones I'm like, oh, I miss them. They were fun. What did you do that's so different? I know they're higher end, but can you give us a little brief on how they are different and, a bit about the industry?
Yeah, so I think there's lots of different types of ways to apply extensions. And I think for a long time, it was like you had to choose between having healthy hair and the hair that you wanted. Mm-hmm. Because I think that, a lot of people are familiar with like tape-in extensions, and those you're gluing hair onto your hair. There's elegant ways of calling it glue, but it's glue.
Yeah.
And most extensions were glue-based, and most people seeking extensions have fine hair. And then it's hard to cover it. And so with hand-tied hair, it's been around for a very long time. I mean, at least 30, 40 years, but it's made by hand. Somebody is tying it on with a loom. And that's important because it makes it very lightweight, very invisible. There's no bulk. And so it doesn't add weight. So when you're wearing them, it's a very seamless experience, almost like a weightless experience. And that reduces the damage. Mm-hmm. And then there's just been a lot of innovation around how you would create a foundation to put it on that doesn't involve glue. So with our extensions, there's no glue whatsoever. And so the removal process is very fast and very easy. And then for us, it's the sourcing. I'm really meticulous about sourcing. We work with factories that are just as there's so much hair that we reject or that just doesn't make it into the stream of commerce for us because mm-hmm. it has to be consistent. We also just pay, when I was creating the product, I didn't worry about the price point. I think a lot of times people are like, okay, this is the price range I want to be in. What can I get? And I was like, this is what I need. I need hair that won't be brassy. I need hair that won't tangle. I need hair that's like the highest quality. And I was like, let's just figure that out. And then we'll worry about the price. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of what's different is that we got to overgive on quality, and then we don't have to spend as much on advertising and gimmicks and all of that because the hair really sells itself.
So I want everyone to take that in, that everyone's scared of going high price, but when you have the high quality and there was a few things you worked in that were really smart. Like, first of all, you have to educate the clients, right? You can't just start selling something at high price. Like, you helped them and showed them how different it was. And why it was a great product. But also, I love that it's invitation only. So a stylist then is proud to be able to offer your product. It's like being an authorized distributor for Chanel, for example. Like you can't just go sign up to sell Chanel in your shop. You have to be, I'm making this up. I don't even know if there are authorized distributors for Chanel.
No, but there is. And they're very, because from Bloomingdale's, I used to know that it's like, if you ever see a sale, it's very clear. Chanel never goes on sale, and they have exclusions and they really hold standards, and they send people in to make sure that you're marketing it the right way, that it stands alone, that it's not, next to a brand that isn't aligned with them, very high standards. Yeah. It's
such a great brand example for you. And also, though, the great thing is you already had an affinity with that higher end market. So you had that celebrity kind of background clientele. You knew like they have to look good. They'll pay more. They'll pay whatever for a beautiful product that also doesn't ruin their hair. And so what were the first steps you took when this was ready to get it out there? Was it approaching the certification organizations because that was a large group that you could access?
Yeah, it was definitely the affiliations with different, it was more like a partnership with different educators, and just really auditing and understanding how much training, how much they invest in time, and really just elevating the whole industry, I think, as a whole. So we had some great relationships with those certification partners. And then we have our own, we do like more like enterprise level education. So it's not just like individuals on their own. You have to, have a salon with certain amount of chairs, but that was very important, those relationships. And I think it kind of circles back to, with me, I love people, and, trying to get a sense of keeping those connections, and really approaching them from, it was a collective, collaborative process. And I think the supply chain, the hair extension industry tends to be dominated by a lot of older men, and for whatever reason, and they don't like to listen. I think they kind of understand, like, we know what's best and here's your product. Mm-hmm. And I just was seeing a lot of frustrations that stylists were having of what they were using. And I just was like, let's figure out how we can work together. Let you kind of dictate where we grow this to, what colors, what SKUs in it. And I think that's more emblematic of female leadership, is that we're really good at collaborating and kind of working as a collective. And that's how it began.
Did you have people telling you that, oh, you can't break these industry norms, this isn't how it works?
Oh, absolutely. I had so much. I mean, and this is the thing too, is that, I'm self-funded. We didn't take on, any debt, and I just had to be really scrappy and really leverage my relationships and the trust that people had. I think a lot of people kind of knew that I demand excellence, and then I'm really particular. Like, I'm that friend who, like, at a restaurant is always going to order the best thing on the menu, but like know exactly how to, just get it there. So leveraging that trust. But, there was a lot of setbacks, a lot of, I wouldn't call it sabotage, but a lot of blacklisting and a lot of just making things way more difficult than they needed to be.
That's interesting. So now you've taken it. I mean, your company is a multi-million-dollar company. You have how many, like, give us a scope of like how big this is, or the reach, or the amount of reps, or just help me get my head around it.
Yeah. So I would say we're a multi-million-dollar company, and we have, and I think it's like, what I love about us is it's not necessarily the amount, it's the right people. It's the quality of our collective, I call them. Mm-hmm. We have some of the best stylists. Their work, if you go to our Instagram feed and just see some of what they do, it's beautiful with their client. We have great clientele, and yet we're still a very scrappy company. We're not, I think I've talked with you about this, Allie. People are like, you need offices in New York, in LA, in Paris, you start kind of getting like, oh, well, maybe I need to have, all of those old markers of success. Mm-hmm. And just, you were really instrumental in being like, well, what if you didn't do that? What if you did it in a way that works for you? While we're big in revenue, I still think we're a very scrappy company.
Mm-hmm. And it's paid off. I mean, when you look at the past few months and everything going on in the world, are you glad you didn't get the Madison Avenue office?
I cannot thank you enough. I think I saw you in Miami, and I literally had this lease on, the lawyers were looking at it. Thank goodness. I mean, it's been so helpful to just be able to, reimagine what success can look like, and not having it be those old markers.
Yeah.
I mean, especially in the past couple of months, it's just, you really, all of the fluff and the waste that a lot of people had were the things that were like buoying them down, anchoring them down, So I'm just so thankful.
And I think we all go through that. I mean, when I was in LA, I somehow thought I needed an office in Century City. And then that turned into, and finally, like, one of my clients is like, we don't like coming here. We'd like coming to your house better, Yeah. And that's when I could have clients at the house, because my house was amazing and I was single and everything was perfectly clean and awesome.
I miss those days.
I would never have a client at the house now. And we have a lovely home, don't get me wrong. But like, it's just, there's too much to worry about now as far as prepping if someone was coming,
Yeah.
shoving piles of stuff. And just, I love that feeling of separateness now. Like I get excited when I have a client come to town. I'm like, oh, we get to get a conference room. But I get that when I need it. Right. So
Exactly.
and you could do that with your team too. I think that's important to point out that you run this out of your home. And in your industry, that was very unusual. And I think that's where maybe that was an industry norm, right? You would never run a beauty company and be taken seriously if you were running it out of your home.
Well, we did. So we had a very small office. And we still do. But we had a small office, but because I have an au pair, so I gave up my home office to have an au pair. So then that's when I got our office. But a lot of us work remotely, especially the people who work on our team who work out of LA. Mm-hmm. And now, I don't think we're going to be going back to I told the team we've all been working from home, especially because we're on the coast where these two cities were really impacted. And it's been great. It's really been great. We're all showing up. I mean, it's not without challenges my husband also is working from home. So he's airing on ESPN some days. And then we were sharing an office. So half of the room was like this Covet Mane set up. And then half was like ESPN.
That was the funniest. You were on one of the Zoom calls for the trust. And we're like, where are you? And you were like facing the other way. We're like, there's SportsCenter stuff behind your head. And then you're like, oh, wait, hold on. And then you just rotated. And then it was like all your hair branding and hair products. And I'm like, where is this? Like, what's going on? I didn't realize he's doing his show from home.
Yeah. So it's, media had to migrate as well to setting up from home. So it's been very it's been a crazy year.
Tell me about, over the years, where you have sought advice, connections, inspiration, how that's evolved. I'm honored to have you now in the trust, but I'd love to learn a little bit more about your journey in that, because I always find it an interesting conversation with women who are very successful.
So, I think this is such an important thing to speak on. So for me, after I had kids, I did about, I guess it was 4 years ago now, a Goldman Sachs Tory Burch program. Mm-hmm. And it's Tory Burch Foundation and Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program. And basically it's like a business school for your business. And this is prior to me starting Covet Mane. I actually feel like the idea was born within this program. And there was a lot of peer learning. We learned accounting, operations, logistics, all this stuff. But really where the real learning was within the peer learning. And it was very specific because it was with women. It really started hitting home for us how important it was for us to understand that, for a lot of us, we're managing a business, but we tend to do it in this very like male, masculine, compartmentalized way. Mm-hmm. And yet at home, we haven't set up systems to support us as well. And how we have to merge those two and really get real about what that looks like and really, letting everyone in. And it is, especially when you're a home-based business, a lot of people will see it and be like, oh, that's cute. Is that your house? It's becoming very dismissive and they don't necessarily see, the value, especially when you do a lot of stuff in the online world, they're not really seeing what you're bringing. And it's obnoxious just to tell people, no, this is a multi-million-dollar business that, and not, you don't need to be dismissive, but at the same time, it's not always the right time to bring it up. So in that program, we would do growth groups. We would talk about we got comfortable about talking about how much money our business made, what our goals were, what was working tactically for us. And it was amazing. And it really helped, I think, put me on kind of take me from that like 6-figure world and really kind of bring me up. But about a year ago, I just started feeling like there's not a lot of, you start looking around the room and especially a lot of these women's events or networking. And I'm just going to, I know your audience and the journey looks different of what gets you from the A to B is very different than what it starts to look like when you're getting towards like, let's say Y to Z. Right. And I just needed to know what this looked like. It went beyond anybody that I knew. And I really used your podcast a lot of the time just to listen and just get clues of like, what does this look like? I need more help. I need, and then I came to one of your last iconic events in November and you mentioned the trust. And I was, there was no selling for me when I met, you do a great event, Allie, by the way. So it was when you brought it up, there was a lot of frustration that I was feeling because I've been a part of different entrepreneurial organizations and a lot of stuff still feels either very like heavily old school masculine way,
Mm-hmm.
or it feels like it's pandering to this kind of like boss babe. And there's nothing that's just not me, right? It's just I really want to have a seat at the table of women who, have a very big exit. That's very important to me. And I needed to be around other women who showed me what does this look like, and so the trust is really pivotal for me, just to have people who are further ahead or right where I am or a little bit behind, but at a different level, because there's different conversations that you're having. And I needed to not always be the smartest person in the room. Long story short.
Well, you're one of them. I will tell you, because I'm just blown away with just more about your story and how you've built this up. And it's been wonderful to get to know you.
It's strange how things can start as you listen to somebody's podcast, and then, I have to just give you a lot of credit, is you have really created a very lovely and a very diverse, I have to say as well, a very diverse coven of women. And, you really back up what you talk about. And that doesn't always happen. I've had other experiences. So the feeling is mutual, Allie.
Thank you, Dafina. All right. Now we've got to talk about some current events. I think this is where I am really just going to turn it over to you right now on everything's just happening so quickly. There are so many of us still trying to take in what's happening, let alone figure out how to correctly respond and be a person of change. And there's just so many layers to this. And I want to turn it over to you for a few minutes to share with us, how have you been processing it? What does this mean to you? And then those of us listening, what is your biggest wish for us to do in this time?
Well, thank you for, giving me the space to express how I feel, because the feelings are so visceral. This week has a deep anger, a deep, deep anger. I grew up in Minneapolis, and watching the last minutes of his life just drenched me in anger, and then fear, as a mother of twin Black boys and a daughter. You think of my brothers and my husband. And so that fear just permeates. It's just so much exhaustion from continuous, this has been ongoing for over 400 years, but in my lifetime, it just seems like it keeps going. And Allie, yet there's still hope this week. This week, what really gave me hope was seeing that this moment, George Floyd's death, and Breonna Taylor before him, and Ahmaud Arbery before him, I think it's becoming an international tipping point. And I think the world is watching us and is uniting and framing this as a human rights issue. And that gives me hope. And I want to cling to that hope. I really want to cling to that hope. And, and yet, I think with all that's fast moving and, how, there's kind of like the social media justice that we can engage in, well, great. I'm so thankful that it's been able to bring this spotlight around the world to it. But yet this can't be another woke trend. This really needs to, I hope, be the catalyst for some real change.
And what do you think, those of us who have been, taking it in and just going, the heaviness of this and how much bigger this is than all of us, and we want to feel like we can do something. What do you say? What do you advise?
I think that what I see, and I've seen this week, so many people kind of taking inventory of what they can do, from the little to the ginormous, whether it's attending a protest, whether it's figuring out organizations that you can donate to, or whether it's just in your heart, kind of examining, have you weaponized your fear against Black people in your life? Have you reached out to your Black friend just to say, I'm here? and not letting perfect get in the way of just taking one little step. I think that that's where I want to extend grace to a lot of people who aren't Black, who want to show solidarity and just don't want to mess it up. And I'd rather you mess it up because I know that there's not malice in your heart, and we work together and we kind of have these conversations in lockstep. And then yet on a bigger level, I don't know. And that's the other thing too, is that, I don't know. And I am so open to those who are activists, who are legislators, who can you equally show us this is a community problem? And it's not just something that, it's not just the Black community. It's our nation. It's just this wound that we have allowed to fester. And so, I'm open and wanting to find ways within my business, my life, that I can really put some meat and teeth behind affirming that really simple statement that Black lives matter.
Mm-hmm. Anything else you want us to know?
I've always held on to this idea of this quote that God brings man into deep waters, not to drown him, but to cleanse him. And I'm going to hold on to that for our country. I think our country, it feels like we're in deep waters, and I don't know if I always believe that we're going to be cleansed by this, but I'm going to hold on. As a mother for my children, it's kind of what helps me sleep at night right now. So
yeah. This time on so many things, this one being the heaviest, it seems like a time that things are rising to the surface in an unignorable way to be healed.
Yeah.
I mean, just no missing it, no bones about it. It's like God's like, all right, and here's the other thing you've been avoiding, and then here's another. There's got to be another thing this year coming. I don't know. It seems like nothing can be brushed under the carpet. Thank you for being willing to talk about this on the show, because as this interview came up, we're like, all right, we're going to go there because this is happening, and I want to just thank you for sharing too, like the not having to make it perfect part, because I saw a lot of activity around that online as well for, I think, people who meant well and didn't have the right words. I know I've been struggling for the right words. I've wrote an email to my list 5 different times and changed it because my feeling just expands every day and what I'm seeing and feeling. And I know that could be misconstrued, that I took some time to put that together. And so I feel like sometimes you want to say something, but you feel like you can't win.
Yeah.
And especially on social.
I think the thing that's dangerous about that sometimes too is that on social, if you just say it there and it's hollow and it's not really coming from a place that you've really thought it through and thus committed to making some real changes, then that's where you kind of get into that woke trend and you move on 2 to 3 weeks. You're like, oh, I did my part. We don't need pandering right now. I think we really need to know that this goes beyond what just happened on Memorial Day. This has been going on for hundreds of years. And so I will just say personally, for the people who have reached out with imperfect words, it meant so much. And I know I don't need you to be perfect right now. I just need you to, take steps towards committing to acknowledging that we need to do better.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you. Dafina, to end with some pieces of advice for everyone listening, and that could be based on your incredible career that you've had. It could be based on current events. It can be just what's coming to you in the moment right now. Can you leave us with 3 pieces of advice?
This is so important. We are enough, right? We are enough as we are in this moment to make real and meaningful change. And I get really frustrated with a lot of, especially amazing, brilliant women in my life who tell me a brilliant, amazing idea and then couch it with, but first I need to go get this certification, or I need to maybe build up a bigger following on social. They're slowly chipping away and delaying something that the world really needs. And I think they're hiding. And just, if I could just encourage more women to step up as they are and just acknowledge that they're enough. We need women there's so many women with $1 billion, $1 million, or just community changing ideas. And I just encourage more women to just know that they're enough and start doing it tonight. And then the second thing I think I want to say is that leadership matters. And leaders look and show up in many different forms. And this moment right now, I think we're really seeing what happens when we don't have great leadership, especially at the top. And so let's do the little things. Let's, fill out our census. Let's really research our candidates from the top all the way to the bottom. Let's make some phone calls. Let's just put some small effective change into place, and share it. I'm a big believer in, if you do any research on organizations, especially right now, I know so many friends who are like, I don't know where to begin. I really do something. Well, start a Google Doc. If you have found some really great organizations that you really think are committed to change, or if you have some research on a really corrupt politician at the local level, you think there's a great candidate, or if you know someone who you think would make a great person to run for office, text them, let them know. But back to that Google Doc, share it. Make this be a livable, breathing document that continues to grow. And let's let our knowledge collectively, let's empower and kind of weaponize our knowledge, so that we can have some real effective change at leaderships from like the school board to, the county level to the very top.
Yeah, I'm writing that down. Let's weaponize our knowledge. Ooh.
Yes.
I like that.
We're sitting on so many women. You just are great at researching, and let's just share it. So the final thing is, then this is just, back to when you're imagining success and what we need to sacrifice. And this, even speaks to kind of where we are right now in this moment of, we're talking about what things need to be sacrificed for the greater good. And I always thought about this when I realized, for me as a successful woman, I had to kind of start killing some old notions of myself, or things that I held on to that were comforting, and make room for success. So one of those things was that I could do it all, right? And I had to have a real honest conversation about how much help I really need to run a business, run a family, and what that looks like. And really, I like to share with women too, because I do not like when we try to hide and, make it seem as if we have it all together and it's just like a one-woman show. So I'm thankful for, my au pair. I'm thankful for my mother and my mother-in-law who help out with my kids. I'm thankful for my husband, who is, a real trooper in terms of really taking on some more traditional roles that women normally did, and my housekeeper, and my assistant, and just there's a lot of people who make this happen, and just being honest about that. And it's the same, I think, for as we want to change as a country, right? What beliefs about ourselves do we need to let go of? What honest conversations about how much work this is really going to take to fix and really be what we're getting ready to celebrate July 4th about, and just living up to that notion. But there are some things that we really do need to sacrifice, and having honest conversations around that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, because, people see us as these, the rock star moms and think we're doing it all. And no way.
No
way.
Not at all.
No way. I'm employing half of Scottsdale. We've pared back. Now the kids are older, but It's just like, oh my gosh, it's just, and even my team's been great just to be like, oh, can you pick up this prescription if you're going to be down the road anyway? And, just things like that. Just it's teamwork. And I think it's new for women in many ways. And it's new in the family. It's new as us asking for help and working with our partner as a team. And Dafina, I just want to thank you for having me as part of your team as well, and being so honest on this show today. And I think it's interesting because it's been just such a heavy 2 weeks taking it all in, but there's also this undercurrent of excitement in the conversations that I know that I've had with my clients that I think we're starting to break into. It's that breakdown before the breakthrough. And by no means am I past, stage one, but I'm just that knowing that wow, I think there's going to be some good that comes from this. No matter what, the people are talking like they haven't talked before. And there's been some just powerful things going on. I think a lot of it behind the scenes too, not on social necessarily.
Yes. There's a lot of real conversations that sometimes social is great, but it's not necessarily the place for deep work, right? And I think there's some deep work happening, around some kitchen tables and on some WhatsApp groups amongst friends and in safe spaces. And I think sometimes you say this, Allie, you're really good about you're like, well, what if 2020 was just the year that we needed? What would that mean? And what would that have to look like? And, I've really been thinking about this year of like, I'm really quick to dismiss it as like the worst year ever. But I'm thinking of stuff that you've kind of said to me sometimes when I'm kind of struggling with things. What if this is the year that we needed to really just change some of those really ugly underpinnings of what we were, on a really high speed train going towards?
Yeah, I like that. And the plan on the wall, I just crossed out and put 2021.
Yeah.
The plan for the business, like, what, let's just X out that 0 and put the 1 there and be done with it. I mean, it's over, it's over. Like, we've got to deal with this stuff. It's coming up. It's not, let's handle this now. Dafina, thank you so much. And good luck settling into your new home with the boys. And, I grew up near Westport. It's such a beautiful area. And, you're close to New York. It's a great spot.
It's lovely. We just got back from the beach. And you feel like you're in a little bit of a vacation town, but you're just like a little skip from the city. So
yeah. All right, hun. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Bye. Thanks, Allie.
Bye. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Glambition Radio. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe so you automatically get new shows every week. And I'd love if you left us a review. We are on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and other platforms. And I'd love to hear from you. Come join the conversation online. You'll mostly find me on Instagram, but also on Facebook, Twitter, and more. Just head to alliebrown.com. You will find them all there. And you can also learn about upcoming opportunities to meet in person. Glambition Radio is the elevated conversation for women leaders, and I'm honored you've tuned in.